On our 5th wedding anniversary, I cut into the cake, and instead of filling, a water balloon prepared by his mistress burst open. Laughter exploded across the room. My husband held up his phone, filming me at my most humiliating moment, and sent it to her. Later, he used my mother's life-saving medical money to force me to sign the divorce papers. He trapped me in a pregnancy to keep me bound to a wealthy family, alternating tenderness and threats to tame me. I didn't explode on the spot. I didn't cry or make a scene. My first act of retaliation was quietly moving assets, changing my name and documents, and cutting off every social tie. The second was disappearing overnight after the miscarriage, vanishing so completely that even with all his power, he couldn't find me. The third was when he knelt in front of me and said, "I've changed." And I calmly told him, "You no longer deserve a place in my life." The moment the knife went down, I heard a faint pop. It wasn't the soft resistance of cream. The next second, a pink water balloon exploded inside the 5-tier cake. Icy water mixed with colorful sugar sprinkles sprayed across the table. The guests' laughter cut off abruptly. The front of my white dress was soaked, glittering with sticky candy beads. Ethan was holding up his phone, the camera aimed straight at my disheveled state. The smile at the corner of his mouth hadn't even faded as his finger tapped the screen and sent the photo. Surprised? He walked over, his voice laced with mockery. "Sophie said this idea was especially fun." As he spoke, his phone wasn't locked. A voice message played automatically. A woman's coy voice burst from the speaker. "Next time we meet, I'll punish you properly." At the table sat his business partners, my parents, and several people I once thought were friends. Everyone was watching me, waiting for me to cry, waiting for me to cause a scene, waiting for me, like the past 4 years, to redden my eyes and shout, "How could you do this to me?" I tightened my grip on the cake knife. My knuckles turned white. Then I set the knife down and said softly to the waiter, "Please clean this up." I turned and walked toward the restroom. Behind me came Ethan's relaxed laughter. "See? My wife is very magnanimous." The instant the restroom door locked, I bent over the sink and retched. Nothing came up, only violent spasms in my stomach. The woman in the mirror had flawless makeup, hair perfectly in place, like a beautiful mannequin. There was a knock at the door. "Lynn?" It was Ethan. His voice carried fake concern. "Are you okay? Come out and have some water." I opened the door. He handed me a cup of warm water, his eyes saying, "I know you'll take it." I did. The corner of his mouth lifted. "See, she compromised again. It's just a cake." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "At your age, throwing tantrums wouldn't look good. A 30-year-old woman should know better." I raised my eyes and, for the first time, didn't argue. I said, satisfied. He patted my shoulder and turned back to the banquet. I watched his retreating back, took out my phone, and confirmed my flight to the West Coast at 11 tonight. Order status, ticket issued. When I returned to the table, Ethan was saying, "Tomorrow I'll have Sophie come apologize to you, just for form's sake." I lifted my wine glass and gently swirled it. "No need," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "What?" "No apology needed." I took a sip. "After all, we won't be seeing each other again." He froze for 2 seconds, then laughed, assuming I was speaking out of anger. What he didn't see was the business card of a divorce lawyer pressed beneath the passport in my bag. That wasn't actually the first time. A week earlier, I'd ended a gallery business trip early and come home. The master bedroom door was half open. A woman's laughter drifted out, mingled with Ethan's low voice. I pushed the door open. Sophie was wearing my silk robe, standing at my vanity, a necklace hanging around her neck. The pearl necklace my mother had left me before she died. She'd said, "Give this to your daughter someday. Pass it down." Ethan was leaning against the headboard, holding our wedding album. He looked up, saw me, and showed not a trace of panic. "You're back?" He closed the album. Perfect timing. Sophie said this necklace goes well with her outfit today. I walked over and reached for the necklace. Sophie dodged, and the pearls scraped against her neck. "What are you doing?" She pouted. Ethan stood up and grabbed the necklace, yanking hard. The string snapped. Pearls clattered across the marble floor, scattering everywhere. "It's just a necklace." He frowned. "You're making a scene like a lunatic." I crouched down to pick up the pearls. My hands were shaking. 1, 2, 3. I couldn't gather them all. He tossed the wedding album over casually. It landed by my feet. The glass frame cracked. In the photo, I was wearing a white gown, smiling stupidly. He had his arm around my waist. His eyes so gentle they looked real. "What are you staring at?" He blocked my view. "The you now isn't worthy of the me back then." Sophie stepped barefoot over the pearls and nestled into his arms. "Ethan, I'm scared." "Scared of what?" He held her tighter. "This house. This room, you can come whenever you want." He looked at me, his gaze cold. "Did you hear that?" I clenched the pearls in my palm, their edges biting painfully into my skin. That night, I cried, in the guest bathroom, with the water running full blast. I covered my face and cried until I was nearly hypoxic. Then I stopped and looked at my swollen eyes in the mirror. I'd cried enough. From that day on, I stopped arguing, stopped questioning. He began openly bringing Sophie home for dinner. I set out 3 place settings. He had her try on my jewelry. I opened the jewelry box and let her choose. He even had her sit in my seat at family gatherings. I sat quietly in the farthest guest chair. My mother-in-law, Margaret, cast me an approving glance. Now this is what a Blackwell daughter-in-law should be, knows the big picture. Ethan was very satisfied. He thought I'd finally learned my lesson. Finally accepted the true definition of a wife in this family, a presentable decoration. An accessory that tacitly permits her husband to keep a mistress. What he didn't know was that I was playing along. Because a real actor never reveals her cards before the final curtain, I began compiling an asset inventory. In our 5 years of marriage, Ethan guarded against me like I was a thief. But Margaret loved to show off. Family trusts, equity structures, offshore accounts, the fragments she let slip at tea parties, I memorized them all. Every night, while he slept in the master bedroom with Sophie in his arms, I typed away in the guest room. The document was titled, Escape Route. The critical condition notice for my mother arrived at 3 in the morning. Late-stage lung cancer. The doctor said she had, at most, 2 months. My hands shaking. I called Ethan. Once, twice, 10 times. Busy signal. I knew exactly where he was. Sophie had updated her social media location, a hot spring villa in the suburbs. In the 9-photo grid, his hand rested casually on her waist. At dawn, the call finally went through. "What is it?" His voice was lazy with sleep, and there was a woman's soft laughter in the background. I forced my voice to stay steady. "My mom is critical. She needs to be transferred to a private hospital. The deposit is $300,000. My card has a spending limit." "Just that?" He cut me off. "I'm on vacation. You know how company procedures work. Wait until next week when finance is back." "But, Lynn." His tone turned cold. "Do you think everything in the world is supposed to revolve around you?" The line went dead. When I called again, his phone was already off. Bills from the public hospital came one after another. My mother's pain medication was switched from imported to domestic. She was in agony all night, gripping my hand and whispering, "Sweetheart, Mom won't get treated anymore." On the 4th day, Ethan finally showed up, impeccably dressed, cufflinks polished, carrying the scent of the perfume Sophie always wore. He handed me a check. The amount was exactly $300,000. "Sign this," he said, producing a supplemental divorce agreement with his other hand. "Waive any claim to the property. Consider this advance alimony." I stared at him. "You're forcing me now?" "Forcing you?" He smiled. "It's a transaction. You sign, and I'll have the hospital arrange the best room immediately. If you don't," he shrugged. Just then, my phone rang. It was my father. The moment I answered, he started yelling, "Did you piss Ethan off again? Apologize to him right now. Your mother's life is in his hands. Can't you be a little more sensible?" His voice was loud enough to leak through the speaker. Ethan heard every word. The curve of his smile deepened. He had planned everything. My father's small company depended on Blackwell family supply chains. My mother's access to treatment was controlled by him. Even my own father had become his lobbyist. I picked up the pen. My hand was steady as I signed. He collected the agreement with satisfaction. "If you'd done this earlier, wouldn't it have been easier?" The check fluttered down in front of me. As I watched him walk away, I understood something with brutal clarity for the first time. He knew exactly where my bottom line was, and he enjoyed testing how elastic it could be. This time, it was my mother. Next time, what would it be? That night, I stayed at the hospital. After my mother fell asleep, I opened the notes app on my phone. New entry, price list. First line, October 11th, 2023, mother's right to life. Transaction amount, 300,000 plus waiver of property claims. Second line, left blank. I knew there would be a third, a fourth. Unless I left this negotiation table completely. I found out I was pregnant 2 months later. My period was 2 weeks late. The pregnancy test showed 2 glaring red lines. Sitting on the toilet. My first thought was, I can't keep it. If this child were born, it would carry the Blackwell surname. It would become a new shackle. Something that would keep me from ever leaving cleanly. I scheduled a termination at a private hospital. The procedure was set for next Thursday. On Wednesday night, Margaret showed up unannounced. She rarely smiled at me, but this time she did, taking my hand and placing it on her knee. Lynn, you're pregnant, why didn't you say so earlier? The Blackwell family's first grandson deserves proper preparation. A chill ran down my spine. How did you know? I have friends at the hospital. She patted my hand. The pressure heavy. I've already cancelled the appointment. Don't ever think about doing something so foolish again. Ethan burst in half an hour later. He must have come straight from some social engagement, his tie crooked, alcohol on his breath, but his eyes frighteningly clear. Who gave you permission to abort? He grabbed my wrist. My child, what right do you have to decide? I looked at him. This child shouldn't be born. Whether it should or not is up to me. He flung my hand away and turned to Margaret. Mom, hold on to her passport and ID for now, until the baby is born. She's not going anywhere. Margaret nodded, took my documents out of her bag, and locked them into a safe in front of me. Focus on the pregnancy, she said before leaving. Don't make things difficult for your parents. After they left, I went to the window. Ethan's car was parked downstairs. The passenger side window was half open. Sophie was inside, tilting her head up to kiss him. He had one arm around her, his hand slipping under her clothes. A while later, he came back upstairs. Sophie followed. She handed me a tissue, her eyes full of pity. Sis, wipe your face. You look awful. That was when I realized I was crying. Not from sadness, from disgust. Ethan frowned. What are you crying about now? Pregnancy is a happy thing. Stop looking so miserable all the time. That night, I lay in bed with my hand on my lower abdomen. Inside was a cluster of cells dividing rapidly, innocent, yet destined to become my newest cage. I got up and opened a hidden folder. In escape route, I added a new section, fetus-related, legal clauses, custody precedents, methods for preserving medical records. If I had to give birth, then I would make sure this child would never become a tool to bind me, even if that meant learning, in advance, how to be a heartless mother. In my 4th month of pregnancy, Ethan suddenly changed. He cut off all public contact with Sophie, worked from home, and cooked nutritious meals himself every day. In the mornings, he brought me warm milk. At night, he massaged my swollen ankles. On weekends, he took me to art exhibitions, places we used to visit when we were dating. Standing in front of Monet's water lilies, he wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on the top of my head. Do you remember? His voice was soft. You once said you wanted a home, with a pond outside the window, water lilies blooming all summer. My body stiffened. I remembered. At 23, sprawled on his dorm bed, I'd drawn my dream house in a notebook with colored pencils. He'd leaned over, smiling. I'll buy it for you someday. Later, he did. A 3,000 square meter villa, an artificial lake planted with rare water lilies. But I wasn't living in it. Lynn, he turned me around, his gaze earnest. Let's start over, okay? For a brief moment, I almost believed him, believed that the man I once loved without reservation had finally woken up. Then he added, as long as you behave, I won't use your mom's situation to make things hard for you anymore. It was like a bucket of ice water poured over my head. You're using my mother to threaten me, I heard myself say, my voice perfectly calm. Or are you begging me? His expression changed. Do you really have to take this attitude? He let go of me, irritation barely contained in his tone. I'm being good to you, can't you just take the hint and back down? A hint? I laughed softly. Every step you offer has a trap waiting underneath. He stared at me, the warmth draining from his eyes bit by bit. Forget it. he said, turning to leave. Be like this if you want. Once the baby's born, you'll accept your fate anyway. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 2 in the morning, his phone vibrated on the nightstand. He was sleeping deeply. I picked it up. The screen showed, Sophie. I swiped to answer, guessing the passcode. He used the same one for everything. A woman's sobbing came through the line. Ethan, I'm pregnant. You said you'd divorce her and marry me. Now she's pregnant too. What am I supposed to do? I hung up and put the phone back where it was. And waited. 5 minutes later, Ethan woke up, glanced at his phone, and his face changed instantly. He got out of bed and went to the balcony to return the call. He kept his voice low, but I caught a few words anyway. Take care of it. The money won't be a problem. Don't make a scene. When he came back inside, I pretended I had just woken up. What happened? I asked. He looked at me, then suddenly exploded. Isn't this all because of you? If you weren't pregnant, would things be this complicated? I looked at him, and finally understood completely. He would never change. What he called being good was just control in a different form. When tenderness stopped working, he would instantly revert to cruelty, because he only loved himself, and I had never been anything more than a tool for feeding his narcissism. The miscarriage happened at 5.5 months. That afternoon, a heavy pain began pulling at my lower abdomen. I called Ethan. The first call, he picked up quickly. In a meeting. Talk later. The second, busy signal. The third, he finally answered. There were sounds of a woman moaning in the background. A bed creaking. He asked, breathing hard. What now? I clutched my stomach. Cold sweat soaking my pajamas. My stomach hurts. I think what? He cut me off impatiently. Pregnancy is like that. Stop overreacting. I'm busy. Call a driver and go to the hospital yourself. The call ended. I held onto the wall and made my way downstairs, asking the butler to prepare the car. The butler looked uncomfortable. Ma'am. The driver took the day off. Mr. Ethan took the spare car. The villa was in the suburbs. The ride-hailing app showed a wait time of 45 minutes. I dialed 911. The ambulance was stuck in rush hour traffic. Dispatch said it would take at least an hour. The bleeding started half an hour later. First drops, then sheets. I lay on the living room carpet, staring up at the ornate crystal chandelier on the ceiling. Waves of pain crashed through me, like someone stirring my insides with a dull knife. But I didn't cry. I felt an eerie calm. The child was gone. The shackle was broken, even if it happened in the most brutal way. By the time the ambulance arrived, my consciousness was fading. As they lifted me onto the stretcher, I grabbed the nurse's hand. Save the mother, just save the mother. I woke up in a hospital room. Ethan was sitting by the bed, holding my hand, his eyes red. Great acting, Lynn, he said hoarsely. The baby's gone, but we'll have another one. Don't be sad. I pulled my hand away. You smell like perfume, I said. Sophie's. His face froze. I'm tired. I turned my back to him. Go. He didn't move. I closed my eyes and started crying, copying Sophie's style. Soft and helpless. You being here makes it harder for me. My shoulders trembled. Let me be alone for a while. Okay? It worked. Just as I expected. Okay, he said quickly. I'll go get you something to eat, pumpkin porridge. Your favorite. Wait for me. He got up and left, his footsteps fading down the hallway. 3 seconds after the door closed, I stopped crying, sat up, and pressed the call button. A nurse came in. I want to be discharged, I said. Now. But your condition, I said now. 10 minutes later, Margaret appeared at the doorway. She handed me a document envelope. Inside were 3 things: a finalized divorce certificate, officially stamped, proof of storage for my mother's ashes, already transferred to another city, a plane ticket to my mother's hometown, departing in 2 hours. The car is downstairs, Margaret said, looking at me. This is what I owed your mother. She saved me years ago. Now I've repaid it. I got out of bed and changed back into the clothes I'd arrived in. And Ethan, he will never know I helped you. Margaret cut in. He'll believe you were the one ruthless enough to abandon him. I picked up the backpack I'd prepared long ago. Over the past months, I'd quietly moved my most important belongings, bit by bit, hiding them in a storage locker at the gallery. At the door, I turned back. Why help me? Margaret was silent for a moment. Because I saw myself in you, 40 years ago, she said, turning away. Go. Don't look back. I didn't. The elevator descended. Numbers flickering. First floor. The doors opened. I walked out, crossed the hospital lobby, and pushed through the glass doors. The night wind rushed toward me. It smelled like freedom. When Ethan returned to the room with the pumpkin porridge, the bed was empty. The nurse's station told him. The patient insisted on being discharged and has already left. He called my phone. Powered off. He called the gallery. The assistant said. Lynn took a long leave. She didn't say where she was going. He called my father. The reply was hesitant. She hasn't contacted me. Did you upset her again? He drove home. Half my walk-in closet was empty. Not the designer bags or jewelry, anything he'd given me. I'd left behind. What I took were my mother's old sweater, my college sketchbooks, photos with my grandparents, and an album filled only with pictures of myself, me before 23. Before I ever met him, he rushed into the study. My passport and ID were still in the safe. He let out a breath, assuming I was just throwing a tantrum, that I couldn't have gone far. Then he saw the note pressed beneath the documents. One line only, printed, no signature. You will never find me. He sneered and crushed the paper into his fist. The next day, he pulled every string he had, checking flight records, high-speed rail tickets, hotel stays. Nothing. A complete blank. I was using a new identity, one Margaret had prepared long ago, registered under a distant relative's household record, the photo quietly replaced with mine. He managed to access my medical records and discovered that my mother had died 3 days earlier. The cremation certificate listed the handling agent as Margaret's personal attorney. He rushed back to the old family house and confronted his mother. Margaret was having afternoon tea, perfectly composed. How would I know? She said calmly. I never interfere in matters between husband and wife. Where are the ashes? His voice was shaking. Where are her mother's ashes? At the funeral home, I suppose. Margaret set down her teacup. Why? She's dead. Were you planning to use the ashes to threaten her into coming back? It was like being slapped across the face. As he turned to leave, he heard his mother say lightly behind him, Ethan, some things, once lost, can never be found again. He didn't believe her. He started frantically contacting everyone I'd ever known, friends, former colleagues, even my college classmates. Everyone said the same thing, haven't talked to her in ages. The world was vast. And yet I had vanished completely, as if I'd never existed at all. On the 7th day, he smashed the vanity in the master bedroom, in the shards of broken glass. He saw his own distorted face. Suddenly, he remembered that day at the art exhibition, when I'd said to him without turning around, Monet painted water lilies for 30 years. But the water in the pond is never the same from one second to the next. What had I meant back then? Now he understood. I was saying, the Lynn you remember has been dead for a long time. Sophie ran straight into the line of fire when Ethan was at his most volatile. She called him, her voice syrupy. Ethan, I bought a new dress. Do you want to get lost? The call ended. She didn't take the hint and showed up at the company instead. The front desk didn't dare stop her. Half a year ago, she'd still been the special companion the boss openly brought around. When she pushed open the office door, Ethan was smashing his third phone. Who let you in? His eyes were bloodshot. Sophie was startled, but forced a smile and stepped closer. I just missed you. You haven't looked for me in days. Did you make up with her again? Make up? He laughed like he'd heard a joke. She ran, took my child and ran. Sophie froze. Ran away? He suddenly grabbed her wrist. Did you say something to her? Did you provoke her? I didn't. Sophie screamed. I haven't seen her at all these days. Ethan, you're hurting me. He flung her away as if she were something filthy. From today on, I don't want to see you again, he said into the intercom. Calling security. The apartment you live in, the car you drive, the credit card you use, take it all back. Get out. As she was dragged away, Sophie was still shouting. You said you'd marry me. You said she was just a decoration. The door closed. The world went quiet, but Ethan's agitation didn't ease. He needed an outlet, someone to blame for everything spiraling out of control. Sophie became the perfect scapegoat. He had people dig into her background, uncovered evidence that she'd been juggling 3 different benefactors, and packaged her scandals for the media. A week later, Sophie's name exploded across the gossip pages, gold digger's dream shattered, cast aside by a wealthy family. She cornered him at a club he frequented. "You ruined me." Her makeup was smeared, hair disheveled. "You were the one who said you loved me, said you'd divorce her and marry me, and now you throw me away like trash?" Ethan leaned against his car door and lit a cigarette. "Love?" He exhaled smoke. "You think you deserve that word? Then what about her?" Sophie shrieked. "Does Lynn deserve it? She's just a housewife, she does nothing but endure. What's so great about her?" Ethan's fingers paused mid-smoke. He remembered things. When they were dating, Lynn had been a top student at the Academy of Fine Arts. Her graduation piece had sold for $200,000. In their first year of marriage, she'd helped him revise a crucial contract proposal, avoiding an $8 million loophole. The tea she brewed was always at exactly the right temperature. She remembered every client's preferences. Family banquets never went wrong under her watch. She wasn't someone who only endured. She was holding together a relationship that had long since rotted, using her own quiet methods, and he had pretended not to see it. At least, he heard himself say, "She wouldn't act like you, like a rabid dog biting everyone in sight." Sophie completely lost it. She lunged at him, clawing for his face, and was pinned down by the bodyguards. "You'll regret this," she screamed. "Ethan Blackwell, I'll make both you and Lynn pay." He got into the car without looking back, but a voice in his mind kept asking, "If I find Lynn, what would I even say? I'm sorry? Or come home with me?" He shook his head hard, crushing the thought. No, he didn't need to apologize. He just needed to find her, put her back in the cage. Everything would go back to normal. My mother's hometown was a small southern city. Spring was damp, the air scented with osmanthus blossoms. I changed my name to Lin Wan and, using the new identity Margaret had arranged, rented an old house next to my grandmother's place. Grandma was nearly 80, hard of hearing, but sharp-eyed. She held my hands, touching them again and again. "So similar, you look just like your mother did when she was young." Grandpa went to the market every day, buying the freshest fish and vegetables, cooking different dishes to help me recover. "You have to do a proper post-miscarriage rest," he said seriously. "Otherwise you'll be sick later in life." I didn't tell them the details of the divorce, only that the marriage hadn't worked out and we'd separated. They didn't ask. They just took care of me. I picked up a brush again. Not oil painting, traditional ink painting. Grandma said my mother loved to paint as a child, especially lotus flowers. I set up an easel in the courtyard and would sit there all afternoon. Ink bled into the rice paper. Lotus stems stood tall, petals unfurling. When I finished the third painting, the neighbor next door knocked. A man in his early 30s, wearing a light gray sweater, holding a plate of freshly baked cookies. "My name's Daniel," he said with a smile. "Your grandmother said you're a very good painter. I have a mural project on my side, would you be interested?" He was a freelance designer with a small studio in the city, working on renovations for ghost houses and cafes. The pay for the mural wasn't much, but it was enough to cover a month's living expenses. More importantly, I could finally make a living with my own hands again. On my first day painting the wall, Daniel stayed with me the entire time. He handed me water, passed me towels, and at noon brought boxed lunches, carefully noting, "No spicy food, no cilantro." "Grandma said you have a bad stomach," he explained. I froze for a second. Ethan had never known my stomach was weak. After marriage, I taught myself to eat spicy food for him, drank at business dinners to keep him company. When my stomach hurt so badly I couldn't sleep at night, all he ever said was, "You're being dramatic." By evening, Daniel said, "Let's stop here for today. I'll drive you home." "No need. I'll take the bus. It's on my way," he insisted. In the car, he put on soft music and didn't talk. At a red light, he suddenly said, "Your ex-husband, he wasn't good to you." "Was he?" My fingers curled. "Why do you ask?" "When you fall asleep, you frown," he said, eyes on the road, "like you're having nightmares." I didn't answer. He didn't push. When the car stopped outside my grandmother's house, he said as I got out, "Lin Wan, the past will pass. The lotus flowers you paint, their roots are buried in mud, but the flowers always grow upward. I turned back to look at him. The sunset rested on his shoulders, warm and gentle. It was the first time since my divorce that I wanted to cry, not from sadness, but because, finally, someone was treating me like a human being. The calm lasted 3 months. That day, I was grocery shopping, pushing a cart through the seafood section, picking out fish. Fast footsteps sounded behind me. My wrist was suddenly grabbed. Lynn. My entire body went rigid. I turned around. Ethan stood behind me, his suit wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his chin. I finally found you, he said hoarsely, with a kind of sick excitement. I yanked my arm. Let go. He didn't. He tightened his grip instead. Come home with me. I won't hold the past against you. We'll start over, sir. Daniel's voice cut in. I didn't know when he'd appeared. One hand was already on Ethan's wrist, firm and steady. She asked you to let go, Daniel said calmly. Ethan stared at him. Who are you? Her neighbor, Daniel said, stepping in front of me, and her current work partner. Please stay away from her. Ethan laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. Work partner? Lynn won. How long have you been gone from me? And you've already found a replacement? I pushed past Daniel and stepped forward. I looked straight into Ethan's eyes. First, my name is Lynn Wan, not Lynn. That name belonged to Mrs. Blackwell. I'm not her anymore. Second, who he is has nothing to do with you. Third, I raised my voice. People around us were already looking over. If you don't let go right now, I'm calling the police for harassment. Ethan's face went pale, then flushed red. He released my hand and took a step back, as if seeing me for the first time. You've changed, he said. Yes. I nodded. For the better. I took Daniel's hand and walked away. I didn't look back, but I knew he was watching. That look wasn't love. It was the resentment of a hunter whose prey had slipped the trap. Too bad. I was no longer his prey. I was the hunter. Only, I no longer wanted to hunt. I just wanted to live well. Ethan didn't leave the small city. He checked into the best hotel and drove past my grandmother's neighborhood every day. Sometimes he brought expensive supplements. Sometimes jewelry. My grandfather threw them all out. Our Wan doesn't need those, he said, leaning on his cane. What she needs is peace. Ethan wouldn't give up. Until one day, he somehow found out that my father's company was in serious trouble, tax evasion, embezzlement, solid evidence, bankruptcy and criminal charges loomed. He thought he'd found my weak spot. He came straight to the cafe where I was painting the mural, in front of a room full of customers. He slammed a folder onto the table. Your dad's problem, I can fix it, he announced loudly, like he was performing a grand gesture. All you have to do is say, come back with me. I'll have the lawsuit dropped immediately, and I can refill the cash flow. I put down my brush and turned to face him. Do you know how my father treated my mother? I asked. He froze. My mom had late-stage lung cancer. She was in so much pain she couldn't sleep. She asked him if he could advance some money for imported painkillers. He said, just endure it. Don't waste money. At my mom's funeral, he didn't even show up because he was traveling in Europe with his new wife. Now he's in trouble. What makes you think I would save him? Ethan opened his mouth. I'm helping you get revenge. He tried to explain. He treated you badly. Now I'm making him pay. No. I cut him off. You're performing. You went to all this trouble to destroy him, not for me, but to prove something to me. Look how powerful I am. I control people's lives. Be grateful. Come back to me. I stepped closer, forcing him to retreat. Ethan, you never understood. Real revenge is when the people who hurt you can no longer affect your emotions at all. I don't hate my father anymore, because to me, he's already a stranger. And you, I paused, are working very hard to become one too. His face turned ashen. Suddenly, he raised his hand, reaching for my shoulder. Daniel rushed out from behind the bar to block him, but someone was faster. I lifted my hand and slapped Ethan across the face. Sharp, loud. The entire cafe went silent. This slap is for 5 years of humiliation, control, and emotional blackmail. My voice was steady. After this, we're even. Ethan covered his face, staring at me in disbelief. You hit me? Yes. I nodded. And if you harass me again, it won't be just a slap. I turned to the cafe owner. Sorry for disrupting your business today. I'll come back tomorrow to finish the mural. Then to Daniel, let's go. As we walked out of the cafe, a police car arrived. Daniel had called them. The police took Ethan away for disorderly conduct. As he was pushed into the patrol car, he looked back at me, his expression tangled with anger, resentment, and a trace of something else. Confusion. He had probably finally realized something. In the world he knew, money and power were master keys. But with me, they were nothing more than scrap metal. Ethan was detained for 24 hours. After he was released, he did something that made my skin crawl. He rented the house next to my grandmother's. Not metaphorically next door, literally next door. The original tenants had temporarily moved in with their son to help take care of their grandchild, leaving the place empty. Ethan paid a high price to rent it for 6 months. He started learning how to cook and knocked on our door every day, holding his failed attempts. 1-1. I remember you like sweet and sour ribs. I poured the ribs straight into the trash in front of him. 1-1. These are wild mushrooms I had someone bring from Yunnan. They make amazing soup. I took them, turned around, and donated them to the stray cat rescue at the end of the alley. He bought my grandmother a massage chair. My grandfather refused it. He hired cleaners to scrub the shared areas every day, prompting quiet gossip among the neighbors. He was performing the role of the devoted ex-husband. But there was only one audience member. That afternoon, he knocked again, holding a huge bouquet of red roses. 1-1. Let's talk. I took the flowers and smashed them straight into his face. Petals scattered all over the ground. Ethan Blackwell, listen carefully, I said, enunciating every word. Your presence, your so-called pursuit, disgusts me. For 5 years, you treated me like furniture, like a breeding tool, like an emotional trash can. Now that I don't want you anymore, you suddenly realize I'm valuable? You don't love me, you just can't stand losing control. He froze. I'll change, he said hoarsely. I really will. No need, I said, closing the door. Save your change for the next unlucky woman. Before the door fully shut, I saw his expression, like a child whose toy had been snatched away. Ridiculous. People who hurt others always think they're the real victims. That night, I heard the sound of things smashing next door. It went on for a long time. The next day, Ethan didn't appear. Not the third day either. On the fourth day, a neighbor auntie whispered to me conspiratorially, 1-1. Did your ex-husband offend someone? What happened? Someone saw him last night, head covered with a sack, dragged into an alley, beaten up bad. His face was swollen like a pig's head. Early this morning he packed up and checked out. I froze for a moment. Then I understood. Daniel is a retired soldier. One of his old comrades runs a security company. I didn't ask. Some things don't need to be said out loud. Ethan's disappearance brought a brief period of peace, but I knew him well enough to know he wouldn't give up so easily. The next time he appeared, it would be in a different way, a more extreme way. Sophie showed up on a rainy day. She'd lost a lot of weight. Her designer bag had been replaced with a canvas tote. Her makeup was still impeccable, but the light in her eyes was gone. She blocked me at the entrance of the cafe. Let's talk, she said. I took her to a window seat and ordered her a hot Americano. She used to drink nothing but hand-brewed geisha. She didn't touch it. Ethan is bankrupt, she said. Not truly bankrupt. It's an internal family power struggle. His mother kicked him out of the core management. I stirred my latte. So he doesn't have time to bother you anymore. Sophie stared at me. Satisfied? You destroyed 2 people who loved you. I smiled. First, Ethan doesn't love me, and he doesn't love you. He only loves himself. Second, what destroyed you wasn't me. It was yourselves. Her expression twisted. If you hadn't disappeared out of nowhere, he wouldn't have gone crazy, wouldn't have taken it out on me, wouldn't have ruined my career. Lin Wan, don't act so noble. You were just lucky you met him first and got the wife's position. If I'd appeared first, if you'd appeared first, I cut her off. The woman sitting here blaming the world would still be someone else. She fell silent. Sophie, you're hating the wrong person, I said, setting down my spoon. What hurt you is a twisted social value system, your own choice to tie your life's worth to a man, and assholes like Ethan who treat women as property. But you don't dare hate them, because they're powerful. So you hate me instead, because I was weak. Because I looked easy to bully. Unfortunately, I stood up. I'm not weak anymore. I paid the bill and turned to leave. She suddenly grabbed my wrist. Her grip shockingly strong. Don't you dare leave. Her eyes were red. You ruined my life. You owe me. Oh, you how? I asked calmly. Give you money? Every cent you spent came from Ethan. Give you the man? He was never mine to begin with. She stood up and pulled a fruit knife out of her canvas bag. The blade gleamed coldly. Someone screamed in the cafe. Either give me 1 million. Her voice trembled. Or I'm taking you down with me today. Daniel rushed up from the back kitchen and stood in front of me. Put the knife down, he said steadily. Get out of the way. Sophie waved the knife. This is between me and her. At that moment, the cafe door flew open. Ethan rushed in. Panting, he was still in the small town. Sophie, what are you doing? He shouted. When Sophie saw him, she completely broke down. You're here, you finally came, she cried and laughed at the same time. Ethan, look, I'd do anything for you. Choose me, okay? Just once, Ethan ignored her and walked straight toward me. Wan, are you okay? He tried to touch me. Daniel blocked him. Watching this, Sophie's eyes went completely dark. I get it now, she murmured. You'll never see me. She suddenly turned, the knife aimed at me, and charged. Daniel pulled me backward, but someone was faster. Ethan lunged forward and put himself in front of me. The knife sank into his abdomen. Blood burst out instantly, staining his white shirt red. Sophie released the handle. Stunned, Ethan. I didn't mean to. He collapsed to his knees, looking at me. His lips moved, as if he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. The ambulance arrived. So did the police. As Sophie was handcuffed and taken away, she kept repeating, I just wanted him to see me, just look at me. Ethan was lifted onto a stretcher, blood dripping the whole way. A paramedic asked, who's the family member? I stood there, unmoving. Daniel took my hand. Go, he said softly. End it properly. I took a deep breath and climbed into the ambulance. Not out of love, out of basic humanity. Nothing more. The surgery was successful. The stab wound wasn't deep and didn't hit any vital organs. Ethan had lost a lot of blood, but his life wasn't in danger. I waited outside the operating room for 2 hours. Margaret flew back from overseas and rushed to the hospital before dawn. When she saw me, her first words were, he deserved it. Her second were, but he did take a knife for you. Linwan, people aren't made of stone. You should at least reconsider getting back together. I looked at this elder who had once helped me. Aunt Margaret, I'm grateful you helped me leave, I said calmly. But gratitude doesn't mean I have to repay it with the rest of my life. Ethan blocking that knife surprised me. But it doesn't move me, because that's the least he owed. Taking one knife for a woman he hurt for 5 years means nothing. Margaret fell silent. And besides, I continued, do you really think he did it out of love? No. He just couldn't stand the idea that what belongs to him would rather be destroyed than touched by someone else. That possessiveness kicked in. If the person holding the knife had been a random man, he wouldn't have jumped in front of it. His courage was conditional selfishness. Margaret looked at me for a long time, then finally sighed. You're right, she said, turning away. I was confused. You can go. I'll handle things here. I walked into the hospital room. Ethan was awake. His face was pale, but when he saw me, his eyes lit up for a brief second. Wan, I stood at the foot of the bed and didn't move closer. Thank you for what you did, I said. I've paid half the medical bills. Let's call it even. The light faded from his eyes. You still won't forgive me? I already have, I said. I forgave you the day I left. He froze. Forgiveness doesn't mean getting back together, I explained. Forgiving you was me letting myself go. Choosing not to hate you anymore. But living with you again? That's impossible. Why? He struggled to sit up. I can change. I really can, because I don't love you anymore. I cut him off. Ethan, love can be used up. For 5 years, you drained my love for you every single day. By the time I wanted to leave, there was nothing left. Now, when it comes to you, I feel no love, no hate, no expectation. no fear. To me, you're just someone I once knew. It was like all the strength left his body. He collapsed back onto the bed. So, no matter what I do, it's useless? Yes. I nodded. You took the knife, I'm grateful. But it doesn't change anything. You give me jewelry. I refuse it. You try to win over my family. They don't care. You make yourself as miserable as possible. I still won't feel sorry for you. Because, I said, meeting his eyes, my emotions no longer move for you. That was the cruelest truth of all. By the time he finally learned how to cherish, I no longer needed it. I turned and walked out. At the door, I heard his choking voice behind me, Wanwan. I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't turn back. I accept it. The door closed. The hallway was long. The lights warm. I knew that this time, it was truly over. After Ethan was discharged, he completely disappeared from my life. Margaret acted decisively, cleaning house within the Blackwell family and sending him to an overseas branch, far from the center of power. Sophie was sentenced for intentional assault. Her life took a completely different turn. My life returned to calm. Daniel formally confessed to me on an ordinary weekend morning. He brought soy milk and fried dough sticks, sat across from me, and said very seriously, Lin Wan, I like you. Not out of pity. Not because you were vulnerable. I genuinely want to spend my life with you. You can take your time, 1 year, 2 years. I'll wait. I bit into the dough stick and smiled. No need to wait. I said, we can be together now. He froze, then his ears turned red. Dating and marriage are completely different experiences. Daniel remembers all my preferences and respects every decision I make. We argue, but we never give each other the cold shoulder. Problems are solved the same day they arise. I began studying traditional Chinese painting seriously and apprenticed under a respected local master. My teacher said I had real talent, especially for painting lotus flowers, full of the vitality of breaking through the mud. 6 months later, my work was selected for a provincial exhibition and won a silver award. At the award ceremony, a reporter asked, Ms. Lin, we heard you used to be a full-time housewife. How did you transition to a professional career? I smiled at the camera. Someone once told me that women my age were good for nothing except enduring. Now I want to tell him this. I can paint. I can earn money. I can love myself. And I can start over. The video trended locally. Did Ethan see it? I don't know. And I don't care. Daniel's studio expanded. I bought in as a partner and took charge of all visual design. Our projects kept getting bigger, from murals to full spatial design, and our reputation grew. A year later, we used our savings for a down payment on a small house with a yard. On moving day, my grandmother held my hand and said, Wan, your mother must be so proud of you up there. I looked up at the sky. The clouds were thin. The wind was gentle. Mom, I thought, I finally became the person you hoped I would be. Free, independent, happy. Daniel and I had a simple wedding. Only close family and friends, 3 small tables set up in my grandmother's courtyard. I wore a qipao. He wore a zhongshan suit. We served tea, changed forms of a dress. The ceremony was plain but warm. Halfway through the wedding, a courier arrived with a package. No sender. Inside was a red envelope containing a check. Amount, 5 million. On the back of the check was a single line. Written messily, congratulations on your marriage. I'm sorry. Daniel looked at me. Do you want to send it back? I thought for a moment, then shook my head. Keep it, I said. Consider it compensation for emotional damages. I donated the entire amount to a women's legal aid foundation. Memo, for wives who want to leave but are too afraid to do so. The wedding continued. While making rounds to toast guests, I caught a glimpse through the courtyard gate. A black sedan was parked at the end of the alley. The window was halfway down. Ethan sat inside, watching from afar. He didn't get out. He didn't disturb us. After 10 minutes, the car drove away. Like a silent farewell, Daniel squeezed my hand. Should we invite him in? No. I smiled. He doesn't need my blessing, and I don't need his. After the guests left, Daniel and I sat in the courtyard, looking at the stars. He suddenly asked, Wan, do you ever regret leaving such a privileged life? I leaned against his shoulder. That wasn't life. It was a gilded cage. This life now, there isn't much money, but every dollar I earn myself. The house isn't big, but every inch was my own choice. The people around me aren't perfect, but every argument happens because of love, not control. Daniel, do you know something? I didn't walk out of that marriage. I smashed it with my own hands, and then used the shards to rebuild an entirely new version of myself. He kissed my forehead. You rebuilt beautifully, he said. I really like this new you. The night breeze carried the scent of osmanthus. Frogs croaked in the distance. Lights glowed nearby. This is my new world. Not big, but warm enough. Not perfect, but real enough. And the woman named Lynn, the silent, enduring Mrs. Blackwell, died under the knife of a 5th anniversary cake. The one who lives now is Lynn Wan. She paints. She loves. She is happy. She will never look back. Because there is light ahead.